Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg, it seems to be that you're having a little withdrawal from your annual pilgrimage.
Yeah, it's not going to happen for me or anyone else in the beautiful town of Speedway, Indiana.
Yeah, Indy
It'll be
500.
reruns. I haven't been home for Memorial Day in over a decade. I don't know what I'm going to do.
You're gonna eat watermelon and grill hot dogs. That's what everyone's doing.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
Probably. Well, this week for the Produce Reporter, you spent a lot of time following up on the biggest story in produce this week, arguably, and you had some great interviews with Ben Holtz from California Avocados Direct and the ups and downs of his contract with the USDA, which I think, to put it in perspective, approximately 460 million of the 1.2 billion that was allocated to produce, 40 million of that went to Ben Holtz, an avocado grower in California that a lot of people in the industry had never heard of. What happened with his bid?
He's been on a real roller coaster. He said when he first submitted his bid, and he had done some contracts before, so he knew the language, he submitted different levels of bids and fulfillment, and he said they picked the highest one, and so they gave him his highest bid, which was 40 million, and he started working on fulfilling it. And I got a hold of him, and I've done a number of interviews, and a week into it, he got a hold notice from USDA, and then just Thursday of this week, he got a termination letter. Now, he is hopeful that it's not completely final. He has talked to some people at USDA, and he has requested to talk to other people, because he said one of their objections to his fulfilling the contract is he didn't have the financing. And he says he absolutely does. He's got money on hand right now, and he worked on financing this week to have enough for the entire 40 million. So he says that's not an objection, and he's hoping he can still get, if not the entire contract, part of the contract. And I don't know how you can negotiate with USDA, if you can or not. I also do not know if his is the only company that got a termination. I suspect it's not. I have not been able to confirm it. I haven't been able to get a hold of anyone who's gotten a termination letter. I haven't seen it reported elsewhere, and no one in the produce industry has been able to confirm that, nor has USDA when I've contacted them directly.
Yeah, the responses we're getting from USDA are non-responses. They're kind of like a form letter, because those are the questions everyone in the industry has. They did give you that about 550 people applied for these contracts, and roughly 220 of them were awarded. So almost half got a contract. But I read extensively a lot of stuff this week about this program, and it sounds like one of the biggest things that got you kicked out of the process was just paperwork. Not having someone on your staff who is one of those grant writer positions and knows how to navigate the government language. And that's terrible. I mean,
it's very possible that there was a communication disconnect of produce people who don't speak government and government people who don't speak produce. And so there were a good amount of companies, and I got a hold of some of them, who are big and have great infrastructure and have done government contracts before. And I think they kind of breezed through it. And I started it off with the hometown company in Kansas City, CNC Produce, who's gotten plenty of government contracts over the years. And they acted like it was no big deal. We deserved it. We're doing it. Just business as usual. And I talked to another handful. We got stories on Damari. We got Pacific Fruit. And then just late in this week, I got a hold of the folks at Chelan Fresh, one of the first grower shippers who I talked to who got a program. And it just makes total sense for them too. They said they already do cross-docking with potatoes and onions at their facility. And so their box is just 3 bags of apples, potatoes, and onions. They have the boxes. It represents their contracts like 1.5 million. and they do like 750 million in annual sales. So it's just an extension of what they do. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. And for some of these businesses, and I don't think anyone in the produce industry would have a problem with CNC Produce or Chilean Fresh or Pacific Fruit working with Charlie's. We had some great stories on organizations that everyone said, yeah, makes sense, makes total sense. The outliers, however, some of the ones that got a second look or a third look and said people are, a hand sanitizer company, a brand management company that has nothing to do with produce, all of a sudden gets 15, 30 million, $40 million to do these contracts when a lot of other ones got shut out. And it's, most likely due to language and most likely due to familiarity with the government bid process. So United Fresh also got a response to their letter. They sent a letter to the USDA with 14, I think, points, and they got a point-by-point response. And the one thing that I noticed in that was that it sounds like the contract that got canceled for Mr. Holtz, $40 million, where's that money going to go? We don't have any answers for that. And apparently it's not going to be awarded to a company that didn't get a contract. So who knows?
That is a good question. And I think that's not the answer that the produce industry wanted, because there are companies who thought they put in good plans who didn't get picked. And now if there are going to be companies who get kicked out because they're not able to fulfill it, that would be a pretty strong argument for giving another look to some of these other companies.
Yeah, and United and PMA both sent a letter to a joint letter to the USDA offering assistance in this process to kind of help them translate the produce lingo and vet the bids on some of this, so we don't see someone get awarded a contract that there's, no disrespect to Mr. Holtz, but I have a strong feeling that trying to do 1,000 truckloads a week is a little bit more than he could chew. If they had just reduced his bid down to something that was a little more manageable to his infrastructure, and then reallocated the money, I think that would be a smarter choice than to cut him out of the process entirely.
Yes, and I'm not one to defend the government, but the industry said we have to do something fast, and they did something fast, and there are going to be slip-ups, and I really don't have a problem with USDA looking at what they had and saying, should we change some things? Because that's part of being a responsive group. And even with the pandemic at the highest levels of US government and state, leaders have to be able to change directions if we're getting different information and we're making mistakes. It's stupid to keep going down a path that is the wrong one. So we have to be careful not to criticize them changing their mind or looking like they made dumb decisions when they're moving off those. But that's a good thing. That's what we want. We need to talk about some retail news this week and Amazon turning some of their Whole Food stores into dark stores. And there's some question about whether or not that's a permanent or temporary move. What is your reporting and analysis found out?
So when I first heard about this, first of all, the dark store concept is not new. You've reported on it back in the fall when Ahold Delhaize started opening some dark stores. And so this round of it is actually COVID related, 100%. Whole Foods took 6, I believe, stores to date. They have 6 stores that they've either closed the sales floor or they were under construction and getting ready to open, and they decided to open them as dark stores for online fulfillment. Because of the demand in online grocery. And this represents kind of a change because, this goes back to when Amazon bought Whole Foods. I think a lot of us in the grocery industry immediately thought, oh, well, there's Amazon Fresh expansion right there. They've got 400 plus mini fulfillment centers that they're just going to immediately implement this. They're like, guess what? I've got a Whole Foods 2,000 feet behind me, and I still cannot pick up groceries there, and I cannot get delivery from there. So it makes no sense. But now, turning stores dark, mini fulfillment centers, this makes sense. And it makes me wonder if Some of these may stay dark. They say right now, all the reporting I've seen on it, all the information I've seen on it says it's a temporary measure, but it would make sense to continue it if they're seeing the volume go through there that they need to see. And it might make sense to keep that as their conversion to this lower cost traditional grocery format. They might have a little bit wider acceptance from traditional consumers. Because I know right now, if I tried to order grocery pickup from HEB, I'm still a week out on one of those, or even Walmart's grocery, which is right across the street. I still would have to stock it for an online pickup spot. So there is need in the market. There is demand in the market. I think we'll still see continued demand. And so this is a way for Amazon to really, perhaps leapfrog a couple of other grocers into this.
Yeah, analysts we talked to said after pandemic calms down, online grocery probably will not drop off. And that's even with a lot of retailers not doing as good a job as they could be doing.
Yeah.
The demand is there.
The demand is there, and once people get comfortable with it, I mean, right? Remember way back in the day when we had the Instacart guy on a panel, along with a guy from I think Yummy.com and a guy who had a Zoom In grocery in Olathe, and they talked about the need for why people order online groceries. And at that time, this is, I don't know, 6 years ago, something like that, they said the only reason that most people would go to it is if it was a need, like you were confined at home for a medical reason or something like that. We're in that need situation, but people get comfortable with the idea. If people are satisfied with the idea, they'll keep doing it, and they won't go back to the store because they don't need to do it anymore. They're like, oh yeah, hey, you know what? I save money because I'm not impulse shopping, which is a problem for the produce industry, especially for fruit. It's easy. I can meal plan. I do it on my phone, no problem. So I can see a lot of people continuing to do it.
Yes. And we also haven't heard a lot of complaints about how they're getting perishables. It seems like from what we're hearing, the professional shoppers are doing a fairly good job.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are actually like Sprouts Farmers Market, for example, when it implemented nationwide grocery pickup at every location, they're doing it with Instacart layered over their operations. However, the way that they're doing it is they're fulfilling the order picking with their own people. So you can have a hybrid model. You can have that, have your own grocery experts, because not only are they good at picking groceries, but they also know where everything is, and they're a lot quicker. But then also you could, if you need to farm it out, you can. And so I think it's a win-win for retailers right now, and it's not as costly as it used to be because everyone's used to it and the volume is there.
Yeah, unfortunately, there aren't as many people out there like you and me who like to go to grocery stores as entertainment.
Yeah, I know, and that's tough. But I think the ones that will survive are the people who are either looking for good deals or looking for an experience. I mean, there's some niche retailers out there that will be fine, but some of them aren't going to make it through there, and we're going to see some contraction in retail space.
We will. I think the small towns with their neighborhood markets are going to be better off than the kind of nicheless retailers who are getting squeezed before. I suspect they'll get squeezed harder.
All right, well, that's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you're not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you're missing out. Go to producebluebook.com and sign up.
Who are getting squeezed before. I suspect they'll get squeezed harder.
What do you need?
Are you getting bothered?
I got a dog on the floor too. Oh, he wants to show you his Dusseldorf jersey.
That is beautiful.
Amazing.
Very impressive. Is that going to fit for a number of years?
Yes. Okay, I'm recording, so. And he's fine. Shut the door. just kept seeing the door creep open. I could see, like, what are you doing in there?
I hear you talking.